I'm about to start Espinosa and was going to give some sort of explanation of the situation here and by moving through the NBS using the 3.0 rules. I found a serious problem in the 3.0 rules, but I was looking for something that the Espinosa specific rules seem to refer to that I don't remember there being anything about, which is that Cav can operate sort of independently somehow. I'll get to that in a bit. But the problem that I ran into was while looking under command and control, I found this section, units in no order status. And this is what I've been playing with in, I think, I don't know how many of the games, but certainly the last couple games. Cannot initiate close combat except against skirmishers. Cannot fire in fire phases. Artillery can still op fire. Cannot initiate cavalry charges with exception of reaction charges. Okay, that has been one of my real sticking points when I was playing Aspern Essling especially. I remember there being hordes of Austrian units that I couldn't get under command under a set of orders, but they were impacted by that. Now, this time I looked at actions which do not require orders, which I didn't really think about much. Army and Corps Commander functions. Okay, headquarters is bounded by the limits. Fire combat, close combat, and cavalry charges, regular or reaction. This is in direct contradiction. Now, here's the thing. This, I believe, is cut and pasted from the 2.0 rules. And so I think that the intention is to play it the way that I have been playing it, which is that units in no orders honestly can't do shit. But it is completely, a reversal, as you can see, and it even made it into the rules here. Okay, movement facing changes in formation functions within command range. Straggler recovery and rally, that's fine. It's actually enhanced. Skirmisher release and reattachment, creating and disbanding detached artillery. I feel like this one line was not removed because this is new. The not being able to fight. And this is kind of important because it means your skirmishers can't protect you. It means your artillery can't fire on the enemy as they approach. If you're in no orders, you're basically just sitting there with your thumb in your ass. I don't like that. And seeing this, I'm thinking, maybe I did it wrong. The thing that I was looking for, see if I can find it here, was I don't know. Let's see. Blank commands both. The Almanza cavalry may move freely within 8 hexes of army headquarters. Okay, that seems free. But I'm trying to look at what it was. Spanish units in Espinosa always count as in no order status as when rolling on the straggler recovery table, which is to say they get better stragglers. I'm not doing this correctly. I wanted to find a specific thing that I am having trouble finding. Maybe it's on the French side. I don't know. All right, I'll go through these and find them later. But yeah, I was looking this up. Jesus. I fucking want this. Here we go. No, that's not it. Okay, I don't fucking... It's not going to be there. I don't know. I had found something that tended to indicate that there was infantry that would be treated like cavalry. And I thought it was Spanish. All right. Anyway, we'll start and I'll investigate the rules. So this is a situation, and I intended to have my orders written by this point before I got on here, But then I found that horribleness, and so I'm going to continue with the I'm going to start the introduction with this. This is a battle where Victor has been chasing Blake, and Blake's troops are basically so worn out that he decides to turn and fight. It's nasty, nasty terrain. It's nasty weather, and the idea of like, wow, my troops are too worn out to run away sounds really like it's not a good position to be in to fight the battle. Okay, let's take a look at the specifics. And I also meant to read the historical introduction to it before I got into this. But again, during setup, I ran into a problem in the rules here. Nothing too exciting here. This is one of print and play games, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, I ended up printing these at way too small a scale, and so the counters are really, really tough to read, especially now. My eyes have gotten worse. They're also tough to manipulate because they fall apart easily, but you know, I don't have access to a color plotter any longer. Okay, the special rules for this. The weather is abysmal. At night, units have to be in towns or walled farm hexes to benefit from the night bonuses on the straggler recovery table, because otherwise they'll freeze. The French army is, although it's only a corps, is run like a small army with Victor in command, issuing independent orders for his divisions. Victor's a casualty. Lapisse takes command following blah, blah, blah. A French division can be ordered to control 2 extra brigades, i.e., I guess you can detach and attach it. You can detach as many as you like. You can attach up to 2, I guess. It took Victor some time to realize he was facing the army of Galicia, and to simulate this, effects last until 12 p.m. November 10th. I don't remember when 12 p.m. is. Okay. I think they have things wrong. I think 12 p.m. is actually noon, but I think the actuality is until the end of the first day, the 12 p.m. on the sheet. Like, I think 12 noon is 12 p.m., even though everything before it is a.m., technically, but somebody doesn't know that weirdness when they made this. But it makes sense that the French would be confused the entire first day of the battle. Because the main scenario starts at like, oh God, starts at 12 a.m. Yeah, on that first day. So, yeah. We're not going to be playing the main scenario. We're going to be playing an extended version of it, which I've set up. The Spanish haven't yet deployed, and they don't yet have their orders. But I may end up following some of the ideas of the orders for the actual game. I just like to fiddle around with pieces a lot. So this will give me more there. Okay. The French player suffers a -1 die roll on all stoppage checks, and Victor can only issue orders if he rolls successfully for initiative on that first day. Should he roll a loose cannon result, he causes 1 randomly determined French division to lose its current orders. And I assume that's immediate, like, which may go back in time in terms of, hey, halt, you know. But it may be a matter of they were ordered to advance more cautiously. Okay, French reinforcements. So there's this French reinforcements track here. It says roll 2 dice at the start of each French command phase, starting at 12, at noon, not 12 a.m. And check on the reinforcement table to see what new French units arrive. A 1-1 brigades, coming from A. The 1-1 brigade arrives before Ruffin. Each operates on independent orders just as if they were cavalry brigades. Oh, this is what it is. The 1-1 brigades arriving before Ruffin, each operates on independent orders without Ruffin, and this is what it says. Just as if they were cavalry brigades and may not be given new orders until Ruffin arrives. I have no idea what that means. That is not, like, there's no special rules for cav brigades being completely loose. That appears to be some kind of artifact that didn't make it into the printed rules. Maybe it was some prior thing to give cavalry a little bit more flexibility or something. I don't know. These were written for the 3.0 rules, so they should match them. Okay. The Spanish have special rules too. Blake commands both Spanish armies. This is the army of Galicia and the army of Astoria. By issuing independent orders. Okay, what does that mean? If Blake should become like independent orders, usually that means by division or something, which I think is what, I mean, that's normal orders, right? These are divisions. They have, I don't know. But he can't like issue orders to each division. He can't create corps. He doesn't have a higher organizational function in between, and I guess that's all it means. Doesn't mean that he assigns brigades orders. If Blake should become a casualty, either Martinengo or Mahe takes over. The Spanish player may not reassign brigades between commanders. The Spanish artillery and the Almanza cavalry may move freely within 8 hexes of the army headquarters, which is up here. And that move freely, I guess they're fully within orders, able to do whatever the hell they like. All Spanish commanders have their command ratings reduced by 1 when rolling for initiative, assuming I can read those numbers. The commanders actually have decent numbers on the Spanish side. Well, maybe not. But there's a 3. But most of them are 1s, so yeah, that's not good. No Spanish infantry can use combat column. Makes sense. Espinosa stragglers, I talked about this already. The Spaniards in Espinosa can roll as if they're in no order status, no matter what their orders are when they do straggler recovery. This is a benefit. The army of Asturias is handled as any other division. Really? That's Acevedo's force here. He has 3 commanders with him, though. He and 2 other commanders. Acevedo accepts orders for it and is aided by Major General Quiros and Chief of Squadron Valdez in leading the troops. These 3 leaders and the Asturian units only interact in the following ways, and this is kind of weird. If an Asturian unit suffers casualties in close combat or to skirmisher fire, roll 1 die for each Austrian commander in the hex. A roll of 6 kills the commander. Wow, they were active, I guess. No Asturian unit can recover from adverse morale levels without being stacked with a leader. Remember, morale recovery is generally automatic in this system, so these units are just not going to recover easily. But there are 3 leaders. If any of the leaders start a movement phase stacked with an unwrecked Asturian unit with shaken or normal morale, he may excite the unit into bloodlust, provided the leader remains stacked with the unit for the rest of the turn. Okay? Acevedo, Quiros, and Valdez are not replaced if they're killed. If all 3 are killed, the entire division, army really, is considered to have disintegrated, and all its units must try to leave the map as quickly as possible through entry hexes B or C, which C didn't make it well there. The main battle is supposed to start at noon on the 10th of November. This is a 2-day battle. And, I mean, just look at the mess of terrain this is, the mountains and whatnot. This is perhaps the worst of all of the set for that. So there's some variants. French 1st Corps Artillery Park was bogged down on the poor mountain roads and took no part in the battle. Still, there was a slim chance that some guns could have shown up. This is a weird roll. When the opt gun is rolled on the reinforcement table, one of the French artillery units arrives in entry area A. Now, those are up here. They're very unlikely to show. With the horse artillery unit arriving first. Once they reach First Corps headquarters, the artillery units can move freely within corps or divisional range. This gives the Spanish player 1 victory point. I think I'm going to play with that. I don't like sliding an extra victory point, but I like the idea of additional randomness in the game. The French get a grip, but chances are you're just giving the Spaniards a victory point here. The first corps attacks on the first day were both reckless and blundering. The variant assumes that Villate immediately realized what was ahead and informed Victor, ignore all the provisions, and Ruffin arrives with first half of his division with accepted orders. Not playing with that. I want to play with the historical order situation, but I like the uncertainty about the artillery. Blake quits early. Blake's decision not to withdraw during the night was probably a reasonable one, but it led to the collapse in the next morning. Great. In this variant, Blake decides to try a nocturnal retreat. Not doing this. This doesn't cost victory points, but it gives the Spaniards victory points for leaving the map early, which can negate the fact that the French are going to give victory points for holding the map. Varied Spanish deployment allows them to set up more freely. This is supposed to give the French player a victory point. In essence, what I'm doing, which is the earlier start, gives the Spaniards a little bit of that for free, for good or ill. Okay. Get some orders here, but those may not be in effect here. So this gives the situation before Blake deploys his forces, allowing me a little bit more room to plan my battle. The French don't start on the map. I'll be using the reinforcement table, but there are 2 reinforcements at 9:30 and 10 a.m. Although, strangely enough, they put them as PM here, which, you know, in addition with the noon issue, is just kind of amusing to me. Okay, and the 3-1 division, which is what's coming on in this section, has orders to capture Quintana de los Padros, which is this area, and then move on towards Espinosa and attack whatever Spanish troops they encounter. So this is like a horrible order. This is the kind of order that I'm like, okay, they don't understand what's going on. Yeah, the order, as far as I understand, should be terrain-based in this in the NBS series, in all iterations of it. And it should be something like advance to take Quintana and then advance to take Espinosa. It's a combat order, so you can attack anything on the way. Attack all Spanish units, whatever Spanish units they encounter. Almost sounds like one of the types of orders that they say you should never do this, and it's not, I'm not sure if it's, you shouldn't do it because it's stupid, or more likely you shouldn't do it because it's illegal. SIG rules are weird. This copies some aspects of them, but yeah, I mean, so I've always avoided doing that, even when it's exactly what I want to do. I want to pursue a force. But these orders, attack whatever Spanish units they encounter, sounds like I should chase them willy-nilly all over the map. But it may just mean you're under combat orders, which is sort of the assumption when you have this. It should say they're under, you know, engage orders to do this, or whatever the word is for this now. Okay, so automatic French victory. I didn't touch on this. I didn't touch on victory at all. So the French, if they hold 5 victory hexes on or before the midnight turn, and no French division is permanently wrecked, the French win the game. Now 5 of these, there's 1, 2, I think 3 in here, 3, 4, 5. I'm not sure. Oh, shit. Yeah, there's 1 back there. Okay. I think there's 3 in Espinosa, which basically says if I clear the road, I win by that point. There is a 6th victory point way up here, which looks like a nightmare to reach. You know, in like Montebello or whatever, you don't want to go into those mountains that have like multiple lines. You probably can't. I'm not sure. Yeah, I just don't know. Anyway, now let's keep looking here. The Spanish setup, I've got them set up. They have no reinforcements coming on. They have some starting orders. The DN, I don't know what that is. So, de Norte. it's the Army of Galicia del Norte, has orders to delay the French advance on Espinosa. Now, which one is that? The DN is deployed somewhere within 2 of 2407. That's this force here. So it's got orders already there. I'm going to be allowed to issue 4 written orders to the Spaniards, to Spanish commands. And those are going to be at the divisional level. Now, in addition to the DN, I have the one Galician, the Galician Vanguard. There's a battery attached with all that. That's fine. The entirety of the Army of Astoria, the 3 Galicia, the 2 Galicia, the DN Galicia, and then the Galician Reserve. In addition, we've got Blake here with his cavalry and his artillery. What's up here? Oh no, this is the DN. I'm sorry, this is the reserve. This is the DN. So the DN has orders to slow the French. I presume with those kind of orders I can fall back. This is complicated because remember, under the old rules, you don't have defensive style orders. So you can't give ground under, old CWB NBS games. And in this, it feels like it said, what is it? The DN has orders to delay the French advance on Espinosa. That sounds like a fighting retreat, if need be. As opposed to, I'm locked down because I'm on defensive orders with my commander here. And again, there is nothing in the 3.0 rules that loosens up the way that defensive orders are supposed to be played. So this feels more like the kind of fudging that I do. Somebody complained about, the kind of fudging I do. And I'm like, but honestly, I get the example by reading the scenario orders in the game. Okay, there's this random events table again that's game specific, and that could make huge effects on things. Historical notes, which I have not read yet, which should be of some interest, and then some designer's notes. This is going to be really, really painful to me, though, because of the terrain. So I don't like terrain. So now a single slope, 2 levels in a hex, which is something like this hex here. They're no big deal, okay? A moderate slope has 3 different levels in a hex, so that'll have 2 lines in a hex. That'll be something like this, I think, 1, 2, 3, yeah. I find this kind of map painful compared to the old cake layer maps were much easier for me to deal with. And unfortunately, LOB uses this kind of map as well. So this is a little bit tougher. We're getting to +3 for a line to go, and then some movement effects for the lighter types of units. So far, it's not too bad. A 4-level hex is getting pretty ugly. Now, a 4-level hex is going to be, let's see, this is 1, 2, 3 still. This looks like a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there may even be 5-level hexes. They're just prohibited. Those are your steep cliffs. They're not really easy to distinguish, though, and this is one of the problems I have. So this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. I'm looking to see if I see a 5. Yeah, they're over here. Look at these suckers. Those are nasty. So that's like, an escarpment or a cliff or something. That is so steep that men cannot climb it, at least in any reasonable fashion. So it will be possible to move up this side of the hill, but it doesn't look pleasant at all. Anyway, that's the start of things. I gotta see what's up elsewhere. I really should be taking a nap tonight because I've got to get up for part of my event in Raid, or I've got to be up. Unfortunately, I slept, until past noon as usual. because I go to sleep. I got to bed early last night at like 6 a.m. or something. And tomorrow I have an interview that I have to deal with. And one of these days this week, I probably need to go shopping. So, these things throw my sort of very, very untethered existence now. I missed my dancing with this last week because I overslept. My sleep's. I was at a nice pace where I was sleeping a couple hours and awake a couple hours and sleeping a couple hours and awake a couple hours, and that worked pretty well. But now that's fallen apart. Now I'm taking long periods of sleep, and they're moving around through the day, and I can't predict shit as to when I'm going to be awake and whatnot. Okay, so I dropped my orders into place. First of all, the French orders, and I don't know what the hell they are. Right? I've decided that they're probably complex orders rather than regular engage orders, and that maybe with complex orders you can follow that attack any Spanish forces you encounter on the way to be some sort of, hey, pursue the shit out of anything you find. I don't know what the fuck that's going to do, because, sure, when I hit these, they're going to probably operate in one place. But when you see the Spanish orders that I wrote, again, based on this weird sort of delay French advance, which I also have determined has to be a complex order. Now, the fact that it's a complex order is problematic, okay? If you want to write something that allows you to fall back, it's not a normal defend order. Something that allows you to do a fighting withdrawal like that has to be complex. And I think it suits under that, but if that's the case, it means that you're under attack stoppage checks, which suits me just fine. This is probably not great, but a defend in place would be ugly under this circumstance. Now, if we look at the orders here, this is the DN, which is 1505. It has already fallen back by the start of the 10th or 11th. And I don't know if much fighting's happened. So remember, if you decide you're on a line that you have to defend, you can always throw away your engage or complex orders and drop down to a default defense, which is what it actually has for that later scenario. So I think that all works. However, if I'm going to do that, what I've decided is to throw, and this may be stupid as hell, because again, the French are going to be coming in right away, but I'm going to oppose them at Quintana, which honestly, I feel this delay kind of requires. So I have given orders to the 4 divisions, including the Asturias here, to essentially move up into position near Quintana. The vanguard is actually going to operate in reserve. It's the last of these commands back here. I think what was happening was the army was passing by, the reserve was holding the rear, and now we're turning around and setting up a fight again here along the Bilbao Road. But anyway, I've decided to contest this more seriously than the French did. Now, how fair would that be? If I'm able to get up there with enough forces, it begins to throw into question whether or not the French are Victor's going to be as confused as he was historically, but we'll keep that rule in place even so, which might seem a little wrong, but we'll see. All right, I can't start right now. I have I've kind of a 2-part interview today now. It got extended, and it's not very far in the process, so I don't know, but this is what happens when you work with headhunters. So I can't actually start playing yet, but I've got my orders down. I kind of understand, I guess, the special rules for this. The hardest thing that this is going to have, there's the terrain, which is going to be a pain in the ass, and then there's the obnoxious tiny counters and map that is my fault. You can print them out at a larger, at 100% scale or whatever, and I think they end up better. I think what happened was I did a test copy and couldn't fit the print on a single sheet. This looks like a single sheet. Yeah. I think I couldn't fit the print on a single sheet, so I reduced it to single sheet and I reduced the counters equivalently. And that's turning out to have been not such a great idea. But it is very, very indicative that I probably no longer had access to the plotter. We moved office space back then and moved out of the building that had the wonderful plotter. That was just such an awesome, awesome device. I have a few things that I printed out on this. I have the feeling that this, except I'm pretty damn sure that when I printed this, I was still at that other office. So I don't know. Maybe I was having difficulty getting the plotter to work, or maybe I printed these out before I learned about the existence of the plotter. That's quite possible, because it's exceedingly telling. There's a line here. This looks like one sheet. This feels more like a crease from folding than anything else, and this could only be done on the plotter. But I find it really, really odd that I've reduced it to the same size as a normal sheet of paper in terms of length. I don't know. Maybe my printer, my printing software, suggested this, and I sent it to the plotter. And anyway, because this really does look like it's just a crease from folding it rather than anything else. In which case, I don't know. I want to point this out. Back when I lived in Phoenix, before I started doing any of these videos, I got very, very sick. My dad came up to visit me, and he brought me this receiver that, was sort of the pride and joy of my old stereo. It's an old, I can't remember. It's whichever one's the musical, Kenwood or Kenmore. I think Kenwood is the electronics for music. Anyway. It's was very good. I don't even know if it works because he put it in a fucking suitcase and brought it up. Yeah, he put some padding around it. And then a couple years later, I eventually got around to buying myself some speaker cord after I found a couple of speakers. I don't know where they are. They're probably over here. Oh, yeah, they're tucked under there, but they're shitty little tiny ones. But I wanted to basically test whether it worked or not. It has been like 12 years. No, more than that now. Hasn't it? I don't know. No, it's been close to 12 years since I bought that wire and found those old speakers, which may or may not work at all. And I have not tested this at all. I've gone, I'm guessing 3 moves, right? No, more than that. I moved 1, 2, yeah, three moves, including moving up back to Oregon since I've had that. This is, a thing that I kind of wanted. Right? To set up and everything. I just have not bothered. This is how my life is. It's not just that, like, I don't do the things that I don't want to do. Like, I can understand not wanting to straighten up the messes, and they get to a certain point and I'm like, okay, well, I got most of the stuff out of there. I no longer have the emergency I need to deal with that required me to hunt through whatever was there and clear that up. And then I just left it as it was again. My life is just this way, anything that, there's no complexity to this, right? I need to cut those wires, I need to strip them a little bit, and hook this thing up and plug it in and see if it, still works at all. Have not done it in 12 years. If there is no emergency, it's very hard for me to do anything that's outside, sort of my comfort patterns. Every now and then I'll come across something and I'll be like, oh, I will do that, and I do it. And then if I keep doing it, it becomes kind of comfort zone. But everything is fucking this kind of mess for me. Interviews, so I figured I'd slip in this first turn here. Now, there's an interesting factor here. A few things I wanted to mention. First of all, since I did the dice choice thing, in the last game I used the speckled white dice to go with the speckled blue dice. I don't have speckled yellow dice, but they seem appropriate for the Spanish. Maybe just because I'm used to yellow being used for the Spanish in like War and Peace. Although their uniforms were yellow, if I recall correctly. So that is suitable beyond just a simple. Of course, different units had different uniform colors, and I'm sure. Counters. This particular printing didn't come with a day or a turn counter, so I made my own, which is fine. I don't have a night side to this, which is okay, but this guy has a French and Spanish side, and it is the French turn first, I believe. Wanted to note, those orders I wrote for the Spaniards, they haven't arrived. They arrive on the first turn, so they're not implemented. I have to make rolls for them, which means they don't give a lot of information about this in terms of like, method. Force isn't in them in this version of the system, but they don't give the method. They give the type of the order. Depends on what you write, but they don't give the method. I assume that it's got to be written if 4 orders are arriving at the same time, and Blake is back up here. It just seems appropriate, but maybe they should be 8 oral, in which case we'd have a lot more trouble. They really should specify that in the rule book. All right, let's start. Interesting. Should it be the 9:30 turn? It says 9 a.m. turn. So there are no French that show up on the first turn. So, hey, the first half turn was easy to do, and I'll get on with the Spaniards. Technically, I did have to do one thing on the French turn. I rolled for a check for a random event. I also rolled for one for the Spaniards. For the Spanish, not much happened. Blake moved back here. Should probably shift these down a little. I hate this terrain. I hate it because it's so hard for me to process. So that's going to be a moderate slope. Cavalry can move through it. I've got a 5 on there in addition to other. Hindering is no charges allowed into the hex. So that's actually somewhat problematic. So I'm going to move forward another space with the cav. These guys probably should be in the same formation. Whatever that is. I have a battery back there somewhere. Just making sure I didn't leave something out there. And none of the orders were implemented immediately. Blake moved back here because there's one unit I couldn't give orders to out of the units in Espinosa, which are the ones I want to get moving. That is the one, and I started to write orders for it, and I'm like, wait a minute, I can just walk there and hand orders out. That's not a big deal because everything else is going to be moving, so if I have to intercept, well, presumably, so if I have to intercept the other stuff, I can get back here and probably catch it all in the same movement. The trail, secondary road, we've got a key on this one. I was afraid we didn't, and so that just moves me forward. I'll put a blue die up here to remind me, and I guess we've officially started now. I gotta get to my interview. I mean, I'm sure I've got like a half hour, but I don't want to fuck around. Here come the French, boom, boom, right into the hexes. So I had to make a couple of changes. I'll talk about that in a moment. My interview went extraordinarily well, I think. I felt pretty good about ones before those, so who knows. But yeah. Now, let me... Yeah. So what did I have to make a change on? First of all, I had to look up the rules in Espinosa for what the buildings are. They're all treated as villages, walled farm. Well, walled farms are no longer in the game, so I don't know why that is the case. But I'm guessing I'll just use the town village and the special village rules, which, remember, make it really easy to take a hex, but it doesn't really matter because the Spanish units that are sitting in Quintana up there are pretty low morale anyhow, I guess. I don't know. The Spanish forces are kind of low morale. Actually, those are some of the best in the command. So those are Bs. Those are real line units. The guys who have run further, I think, are lower morale. But the thing I had to change was I threw my skirmisher out. This map is so tight it doesn't give the French much room to advance. Anyhow, there's no opportunity fire or anything coming in, so we're just going to hit those village units and see what happens to the village people that are in them. There was no random event this time. And the French also will have deployed their skirmishers. I didn't put them on the board yet. And that was impressive. Well, the Spaniards are gone. Those were B quality units, but again, that doesn't matter for the village. The key point was the French, with leaders, didn't have to make a morale check to stand at all. They basically automatically succeeded. The automatic victory for taking a village went in here. I went into this hex. That might have been a mistake, except it worked out well. This guy would have been shaken, so he would have had a chance at failing anyway, but this guy ended up getting in here without taking any penalty whatsoever. He got the wonderful 1 rolled against him. He didn't do as much damage. In terms of damage that's been done, though, this unit, the 63rd line or whatever, is wrecked now. And all the Spanish units in the Del Norte are wrecked. Not permanently, but that whole division or whatever is just knocked out until it can find a place to recover itself. Boy, that was fast. I expect things from CWB or the old versions of NBS. This really, the forces pack a real punch because they have to go into close combat, and I think the close combat is actually more volatile, more violent even, than it is in the original system. Maybe not so much in terms of deaths, although even those, you were using the normal firepower tables on the old NBS. So they were a little bit more violent, but not necessarily, here, well, we took 1 hit on each of these, so that's not that unreasonable in terms of actual casualties. The actual casualties aren't that bad, although they can get pretty high, like 3 and 4 hits on a single shot. However, when you look at the straggler effect on it, it's just massive. Losing the fight is terrible. And yeah, you don't want to defend in villages. It suppresses fire combat and makes it weaker. But when they come charging into the close combat, which includes fire combat, of course, it is just so impactful. The only real question is, do you have the guts to go in there? So yeah, that was pretty impressive. I kind of want to break and do the Spanish turn later, but I'm kind of stunned by how big an impact that was. Now, the French are not happy, right? One of those brigades got wrecked in this attack. But it accelerates the whole game so much to have this attack just clear the space. Even if there's heavy losses, The losses may end up the same as under the old system would have eventually ended up, but the way that like breaking the enemy really hurts them. The acceleration of losses in general across the board just sort of compresses the time of a fight, and it is right. You know, it's like the old NBS didn't get it right, but this definitely does, and yeah. Okay, only one Spaniard took an action. The second division of the Galician army, I made some mess ups. Lots of stuff getting crossed out and everything, has started moving. It's gonna, its goal is to move up to Quintara. It's gonna play that delaying role. Meanwhile, I gave orders to the first division to come in here and fill the gap. Presumably some of those delaying units are gonna mess around in there. But yeah, I forgot to roll my rally checks. Oops, gotta do that. Notice this set did not come, the counter sheet that I scanned or whatever that I printed out, did not come with any morale markers. And that's problematic with my decision well, whatever the decision was to make it too small is involved in that. Now, I don't remember, crap. Montebello is, I think Montebello has morale markers, so I don't have to use the larger ones if I paw through that. Montebello is inside Marengo, which is probably hiding. It looks like my Napoleonics are weaving their way up, so it's got to be hiding over there somewhere. And I'm working with these big counters for now, but they may end up being unwieldy. And I want to take a break again. Not sure why. I'll try to push through. Problem with the kind of structure that the armies in this game have, because they don't have a core structure, so there's no real core attack stoppages. What there really are divisional attack stoppages, but it's not like 1 out of 4 brigades in that division is wrecked and you check on that. No, it's either the division is wrecked or it's not, and you check on a 1 out of 1 spacing. So things actually have some chance of continuing on. Let me make a random offense, and the French don't have any new orders coming. I do have to make an attack stoppage check. Do we have the leader rating here? No. Some of the games have leader ratings written into them, so he's just a 2. So let's see what we got here. He needs a 3 or better to succeed. Look at that, he does. So he's going to continue with his orders, which are to keep going all the way to Espinosa. Now, there's a lot of forces in the way, but some ain't in great shape. I thought it was a mistake that I didn't rally these guys. I mean, it was. I forgot about it. But actually, they couldn't rally. They were still in column formation within the village, which is not allowed. So that'll flip me back over to the Spaniards. I don't know, maybe slip another one in. You know, I mean, when there's so little going on, and this is a small battle, it really is. You know, there are still some French units left to come on the field. We got this and some artillery there that might come in, but yeah, two more divisions, I guess. But you know, it is not one of those big ones. It's suitable for print and play. It makes the game a lot easier to play. And I'm finding the terrain here actually easier than Montebello, at least so far. Maybe because I'm in the plains. Like this, it's not that steep. It doesn't affect that much. So the Spaniards moved their cav up to help defend this. One of the unit continued rallying, but I moved Blake over to give orders to the command, and that routing through a unit, sending that routing because it was already disordered. I couldn't justify being able to move laterally here. This also wouldn't be further away from the enemy, so I pretty much had to run through my own troops one way or another and send some of them flying. And you can see a couple of divisions moving up, the Vanguard and the 1st moving up to take their place as some sort of defense is starting to form here. All right, now it's time to break for real. Weird, and nothing to do with the game particularly, but it's influencing my desire to play. I feel charged up, maybe because of the interview having gone well, and want to do. Yeah, but it may also have to do with the last thing I did, the Votes for Women, that I really enjoyed playing. But now it's carrying over, and I'm like, especially when I consider it in comparison to some of the, all right. Break to look over the historical commentary and the designer's notes. The designer's notes weren't too interesting in terms of, it's adapt this particular battle to the system, and that's telling about the travails of like finding the appropriate documentation and stuff like that, which isn't as interesting to me as looking into, designer's notes for a system, right? But hey, when it's an electronic copy, which this was, it's essentially free to add your own words to it. The historical context is a little interesting. Basically, you've got Victor and Lefebvre starting this, chasing Blake, and they went and engaged him and started chasing him, contrary to Napoleon's orders. And that is kind of an intriguing point, but ultimately they're successful. All right, let's get started. I'll make the roll. Oh, oops, we've got an event. So there was, I'll get to that in a moment. There was one thing that I did screw up on my core stoppage check. The French, the special rule here, French surprise, gives a -1. That wouldn't have had an impact here. And the weather, the only real effect is the nighttime thing. Interesting French, no event. Okay, so we don't have to look it up. The Spanish got an event earlier. It was a reinforcement delay. They have no reinforcement, so no effect. And I check for attack stoppage, which should be a 4 instead of a 3 because of the penalty. And that's going to succeed because I got a 3 on one of the dice. Launch an attack against one of the brigades advancing, stop it, but luckily it's good enough morale in square. I didn't even really need to be in square. I had my leader with me. Had I not formed square, I wouldn't have stopped. But as it is, it's good enough morale dropped into square that it definitely held, and then automatic. And so the Spanish just had to do their break off, which now the cav is gone. Now this weakened unit is vulnerable. And I'm not that worried. I didn't have to form square though, because I was B morale with a leader, which would have been an automatic success. So the French are entirely successful, attacking across the stream, so they were shaken, but they took absolutely no losses. They disintegrated the unit, sent the skirmishers running, and the skirmishers shook the units behind them up. It just looks like this one division is going to take the whole map if I'm not careful. They do actually put it as, on a good day, one of these divisions could have handled Blake's entire army. And other than rallying this, that is it for the French side. I don't know, historically the Spanish actually put up quite a fight, according to the historical document, the discussion, but I don't know. I mean, I'm doing some damage, but not a hell of a lot. And part of it is really bad die rolls. The Spanish have gotten a 1 twice on the close combat. The camera works. It did last time. I came up here to talk twice. Well, to talk once, and I repeated it, and both times the recording failed. But then I let it rest for a while, and now it's willing to play, I guess. The Spanish trying to form a line here with their forces. This thing falling back, I had to leave a gap for them to run through. I didn't try to rally the unit there. Now the Del Norte or whatever is, he doesn't matter what he's facing, he's just a skirmisher, is supposedly the best unit in the entire Spanish army, like the best division in the army. And Blake's army is actually quite good, which is why so many Bs are present. But yeah, I just melted that best unit away with no problem whatsoever. And but now a significantly sized line is beginning to form, and there's some danger with something like this. Of course, you got to remember, if I'm on defend orders, and I'm not, right? I'm on these weird orders that are going to require me to start making stoppage checks, which is funky. At least that's how I read it. I'm on these complex orders for most of these units that are up at the front. The only one that's not is the 1-1. I can't read the units anymore. That may be those black guys. One of these sets, and I think it's them, is on actual defend orders. So they can't, well, no, they're on defend orders. They're not on no orders. Yeah, they can counterattack and stuff, sure. So yeah, there's not a lot of difficulty here, but they are kind of bolted down, at least to some limited extent. The rest of them are on some kind of weird flex orders that I don't know about. All right, that gets me to the point where I have to go play my addiction. But yeah, that was a pretty interesting just plowing forward. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in the NBS before, where it's just like, boom, you're gone. Okay, something a little weird just happened. I got the standard random event of advanced reinforcements, which I believe just speeds up the next set of reinforcements. And this is for the French that rolled it. Just looking that up rather quickly here. It's standard. Next reinforcements awaits one turn near. There is no fixed reinforcement period in this game. However, there's the reinforcement track, and I think what I'm going to do is allow the 11:30, if I remember. I'll put this to try to hide, try to indicate it. The 11:30 becomes the first chance at rolling on this set of reinforcements. Now, this is odd as well here because, what is it? The 1-1 has to arrive before Ruffin. And I'm not quite sure what the circumstances around that are. One brigade's arriving before Ruff. No, maybe it doesn't. No, Ruffin could appear before them if the timing is wrong. Okay, so these become kind of random. And all I'm going to do is extend and allow this next set to be rolled one turn early. I think that's the best way to handle this. Running outside about the game, outside of my life, really, in a sense. I'm watching some religion explained type videos, which I have this real interest, especially in the ancient Jewish origins. And but this one gave me a neat little snippet that I really thought was worth repeating. Apparently, when the Mongols first appeared, and I think I knew this, in the Near East, they took off a lot of pressure off the Crusaders, and the Crusaders thought that it was the kingdom of Prester John coming to relieve them. Then when the Mongols began attacking Christians to large quantity, to a heavy extent, they began to call them one of the lost tribes of Israel, or some of the lost tribes of Israel, which apparently, and I didn't even know this part, Prester John was holding back. So it's almost like Prester John would have been defeated and the Mongols came. Anyway, totally random piece of stuff about my life. Yeah. I'm feeling, I'm actually, I think, worried that I'm going to get this damn job. And that's kind of drawing me to play more, I think. Maybe to chat more. But this time it's game related at least. So, is that a lake or something? I don't know what these weird color things are. They may be just problems with my printing, or they may be in the original file. They look weird and they're not on the key. Unless they're buildings, I mean. Okay. So, under the original version of the rules, and there's sort of a subtle change that the 3.0 introduces here in terms of the way combat is handled. Under the original version of the rules, there was a penalty to attacking uphill. I don't remember if it was in the initial morale check or something like that. I didn't bother looking it up. But there was a straight up penalty to attacking up a hill. Here, it's handled a little differently. Instead of there being a terrain impact in here, and certainly not on any of the tables, what there is the order of checking to stand. So the defender gets a couple of possible advantages due to, really strong positions, but the third option is higher elevation. And that means holding the high ground allows you to charge down nicely, and that means it also gives you a free pass. The enemy has to check morale. It's not going to be based on size alone. The French should be fine, but I don't want to send the worn out unit, which there's at least one wrecked unit on the line. That's not going in. The French turn, the French were repulsed here in a shootout, but here they actually lost and took enough hits that they broke morale, the units wrecked, and they broke morale, having taken a 2 morale hit in addition to being wrecked. Under the old defensive orders rules that were built first in CWB, and then largely, disliked by Dean and therefore not used in many games, you could stand for 2 turns without orders. This game gives different penalties for being in no orders status, or the system does. Notably, you can't fire, depending on how you read those rules, because they are clearly ambiguous, like they contradict one another. But taking it as, hey, this is the new stuff and the old stuff looks like it was copy and pasted. So this reserve unit never got any orders. And I think it very clearly was in a no order status rather than a defend status. It doesn't say specifically either way. People writing this scenario haven't been really good at nailing stuff down, I think. But that's fine. I'm willing to accept there are no orders. But there's no emergency withdrawal requirement for being in no orders, which I kind of like, because remembering that 2-turn pulse that used to be in the defensive orders was really shitty. I probably want to give them orders of some sort or another. But yeah, so these guys had to make a check for core attack stoppage because they're under complex orders. Even if they're not attacking, they're under these weird, I'm not bolted to the ground defending anymore. I'm not, and again,
the game allows all kind of weird stuff in scenario specific, in rules, in orders that were written within the scenario specific rules. Not just this one, but in a lot of them. Things like you can kind of patrol over this huge area, you know, with an independent brigade or something, or an independent division is given this large range. And the bolting down rules just don't work when you have that kind of ranging. And I kind of feel like this is of that nature, this fallback order, where I probably shouldn't have to face a core defense failure. I should be allowed, but nothing's been defined in the game officially that allows for that. So I'm using the complex orders to kind of adjust for that kind of situation. But yeah, I need to get orders to that reserve division, which means Blake, who's over here trying to rally, trying to unblow a cav. Guess it's better than blowing a horse, but is gonna have to move up there and try to give orders, because the initiative, there's a counter initiative in this game which puts it at a 0, which is more likely to lose cannon by a lot than give initiative. So yeah, we don't want to do that. Oh fuck. Oh, I hope it's Victor who has to roll initiative to get, somebody has to roll initiative. Yeah, Victor has to roll an initiative die roll in order to make an order. He's not on the board though. And if this thing fails, it can go on initiative or just fall back and recover, because it's getting pretty beat up. This last turn was painful for them. This was a little painful. Mainly, the biggest thing that's hurting me now is not so much the mechanisms of version 3.0, although they get kind of painful, but I'm kind of internalizing them and learning, you know, how to use them properly after all these games, and then I'll forget them. But I'm definitely growing less discontented, right? Like there was a certain level of, wow, I'm really sick of the effort involved in these fights. I'm more used to it now. I just got, you know, spoiled by the anti-historical ease of the Viva la Emperor system, which I think works honestly as well as the older versions of the NBS. And the older versions of NBS, while fun to play, were heavier to deal with and giving you even more wrong impressions than VLE does. Yeah. Okay, so what happened? So French skirmishers here actually broke the last of the, I don't know what it is. It's part of the reserve, Corona Reserve or something. Yeah, it sounds like a fancy beer or something. I mean, Corona is kind of cheap, but the Corona Reserve, man. Maybe it's a cigar. And then here I unlimbered an artillery, or the only artillery I think in the game, and the skirmishers tried to drive that out. They got really unlucky there. I was rolling at a 3 out of 6, as opposed to here where it was a 1 in 6 chance of even getting a hit. But the hit would rout them because it does a straggler, which broke the unit, and it does a morale hit, which between the two changed a shaken to a routed. Rallies have taken place. I am going to need to pause because, again, the effort in reading these tiny little counters that I've created here is really hard. Okay, I'm low sleep, but you know, I slept a few hours, woke up, played some Raid, and I figured I'd try to get a little bit here. And I'm not sure I'm in great shape for this, although the game, this scenario is so light that, and I'm kind of used to the system now, that it's kind of pleasing. But I forgot to roll the French reinforcement. So let me do that first, then I'll tell you about what happened. So I need 5 or less to get anything. I get nothing. So the advantage of that early reinforcement possibility didn't come into play. Okay. And because there's no fixed reinforcements, there's no way I could just push a unit forward, which would be, the normal result of that random event. Nothing exciting happened on the command stage, but French skirmishers didn't give me any advantages. I pulled back artillery fire, starting to cause morale hits here. And that's really about it. There's some danger of the Spaniards being able to kind of swamp this unit. That comes down to how I read their orders, and what I wrote of them. To me, delaying the enemy, the fact that I have complex orders, etc., I think I have a fair amount of flexibility in playing around with the units that have those orders. The unit that has the general orders to defend, they're probably going to have to stay as kind of an anvil. This artillery, because it's not attached to one of the divisions, and it's sort of freely able to operate, to some extent, I can basically attach it to whatever command I like, I believe. It might be being a little loose there. I don't know. I think it's just the cav that was, maybe about the cav and the artillery that just have to be within range of the army headquarters. I think it's both of them. But in either case, either interpretation, they're not linked to the lack of orders that this unit has, preventing it from doing any kind of regular fire. It's really tough to launch an attack with these Spanish units. It's just, I know that I'm going to fall apart if I do. So I kind of want to give the French every opportunity to get out of there, especially since now I have this unit disordered from the artillery fire. That was very helpful. The army of Asturias is coming up. It's just becoming this massive force, but it's not that high quality. I don't want to do things like cross a stream and whatnot. Although, crossing the stream actually is a little weird. It doesn't really hurt you, again, in terms of melee. You don't know if I had the movement points to do it, and I just didn't want to chance it. Because movement points are tight in this game, and I hate counting, So counting movement points is one thing. Counting all the different terrain levels, on the map is another. And I find that very, very, it does inhibit my willingness to launch attacks and whatnot. It's just yeah, I'm not sure if I have enough movement points to make it, fuck it. But also, I'm also not sure if I want to launch that attack with the Spanish coming across there. I am a little disturbed that things like the stream don't provide an automatic benefit of some sort or another. If you look at a 5, in addition to other terrain, read levels as colors. I don't know why it even says that. Well, no, it would have an effect. It would shake me if I cross it. And yeah, the French faced that earlier. So yeah, there's a slight penalty to that. And if I have to make my morale check first, there's a good chance I lose the battle by crossing the stream. But I am coming around the side here that might help a little bit. And it's really threatening this French position. I'm hoping to force them to call an emergency withdrawal and fall back. All right, I'm too tired to keep playing. It's pretty obvious. So there we go.